All right, we are live.
All right, good evening. Oh, look, this is at my station. It's 7:01 on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. And I now call to order the 2131st regular meeting of the City of College Place City Council. However, before we take roll call, would the newly elected council member, Monica Boyle, please join the clerk at the podium to take your oath of office?
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Monica Boyle,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
Say it again.
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
And the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances.
and that I will faithfully and impartially
And I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of the office of city councillor for the city of College Place.
Can I read it too? And that I will faithfully, discharge the duties of the office of city council for the city of College Place according to the law.
According to the law and the best of my ability.
According to the law and the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
All right, congratulations again. All right, Sherry, would you please take roll call?
Mayor Hernandez,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinoza,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Williams,
Present. Present.
Councilmember Sherman. Present. Councilmember Boyle
Present.
and Councilmember Jessup. Councilmember Jessup is absent. We do have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's now time for public comment. Sherry, did anyone submit a comment in advance?
I did not receive any public comments.
Okay, there is no one in council chamber, so if there's anyone in virtual attendance who would like to speak, please raise your hand now. If you're connected by phone, *9 will raise your hand.
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the agenda for tonight, January 23rd, 2024. The council meeting minutes from January 9th, 2024. The purchase of the traffic paint for routine road maintenance and the salary ordinance. Are there any items any council member would like removed from the consent agenda at this time?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll
Great.
second.
Great, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. We have no presentations on the agenda tonight, and there are no public hearings. So we are moving on to action item. We do have 5 action items on the agenda tonight. First, Mr. McAndrews will present on the agreement for professional services for analysis to develop improvement options and costs for southeast corner of Lamperti and College Avenue intersection.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry for the long title to that. This stemmed from over the past few years, there have been a handful of generally minor accidents, although there has been one since I was here, and I understand another one previously where a vehicle actually went over the wall on the southeast corner of Lamperti and College Avenue. So we've engaged JUB Engineers as our on-call engineering firm to asking them to do an analysis of that intersection to consider safety improvements if there are any, and kind of to determine what, if anything, can be done to potentially improve the safety there. So this is kind of the phase one analysis, which would identify potential alternatives and then help the city select an alternative to be carried forward to design. So kind of initial investigative efforts, I guess. Any questions?
All right, Councilmember Cleveland, questions or comments?
No questions?
Councilmember Espinosa,
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson, Councilmember Williams,
No questions.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thank you.
All right, if we do not have any questions or discussion, do we have a motion?
I'll motion to authorize Public Works Director to sign professional service agreement with JUB Engineers for $38,400 to analyze and develop improvement options and costs for the southeast corner of Lamperti and College Avenue intersection.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Councilmember Williams.
Thank you. Any further or additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Mayor,
Councilmember Peterson?
I have a question. So we're in the action items right now, correct?
Yeah.
If you go back on our screens, maybe I'm missing something, and if I am, I apologize in advance. It talks about public hearings none, and then just below that, it has procedure for public testimony. Am I missing something here?
That's just an explanation of what the procedures.
That's always the case it is?
Mhm,
I'm sorry. It looked like a discussion item.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize.
that's
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to discuss it?
No,
We did do public comment and there was no one.
okay, so it was, that's all I said. That's always there, and I just, okay.
Yeah, you just never noticed it.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I just want to make sure we didn't miss something. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we had a first and a second, correct?
And we voted.
And we voted and no one was opposed? All right, the motion is passed.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, 5.2 is Mr. Rizzatello is going to present an award contract to JUB Engineers for Veterans Park Engineering.
Okay, thank you. So for this agenda item, this project's in a capital facility plan, as y'all may recall. Last year, we did get a grant from the Recreation Conservation Office, the state agency, the Youth Athletic Facility Grant. And this is to put more amenities in Veterans Park, which is over in the Homestead subdivision. As what has been mentioned in the citywide park plan, this would help pay for engineering for the basketball court, a pickleball court, and a restroom down there, because currently there's just very basic playground equipment, and then pretty much just green space and a fence around it, and then the Korean War Memorial. But beyond that, there's nothing else. And that park is the key park for 300 families that are out there. So it's really key. We get more infrastructure up there. So if approved, I would expect the engineering would be all throughout this year, and likely construction out would be next year, which would be good since Lions Park is going down this year year. So it'll be, that park will then be under construction next year.
All right, Councilmember Cleveland, questions or comments?
No questions?
Councilmember Espinosa?
Yeah, just a question. Does our community know that they can use that park? Or is it like exclusive for the members of that community as far as, College Place goes?
Oh, they know it's on our wayfinding signage. If you drive out on Whitman Drive, the sign says Veterans Park down Homestead, and there's official signage on Homestead Avenue on the backside of the park as well. So it's common knowledge.
Is it getting used by?
A lot. I wish that park was actually bigger because for the amount of folks out there, I will say it's an issue. It's someone that lives right down the street from it, so.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
John, remind me, we can only have 2 microphones on at a time, is that correct? 3, mine plus 2, okay. All right. Councilmember Peterson,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Williams,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
and Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
All right, so we have no further questions or discussions. Do we have a motion for this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 24-001, permitting city administrator to sign contract with JUB Engineers to conduct engineering activities on the Veterans Park project for $62,000 with a contingency of 10%, which is $6,200, not to exceed $68,200.
Second.
Great. And first and a second, any additional discussion? And Mike, I would just say that, come spring or summer, Councilmember Espinosa has a good point. Maybe we could just do some promotion and remind people that that park is a community park. And once we get more things out there, it'll be even more fun for them to attend. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Next, Ms. Colwell is going to present on the revision to the city council rules, adding rules addressing public comment and public testimony.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't think you guys can see me, can you?
No, we see your
Oh.
black screen.
Okay. Need to update, shut down my computer and update it prior to Zoom, allowing me to be videoed. And I determined that that might take too much time before council meeting, depending on how long those updates. So I apologize for not having my video on at this time. The agenda item before council today is a proposed amendment to the city's current council meeting rules. The amendment would require those wishing to give public testimony or public comment that they, it would be the requirement that they pre-register with the city clerk. This proposal comes to you after staff was requested to explore options to try to minimize the disruptive testimony and comments that we have been receiving in the recent past. The new rules would require anyone wishing to testify or comment to provide their name, their residence, and the topic that they wish to discuss 24 hours in advance of the meeting, business days. Those who come in person would not be required to pre-register. Anyone who utilized the Zoom platform that identify themselves with video also wouldn't need to pre-register. And then if someone needed accommodations, we would account for that. So the recommendation of staff is to approve these amendments. Any questions?
Councilmember Cleveland, questions, comments?
No questions?
Councilmember Espinosa,
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Williams,
No questions. I think this is a very reasonable approach and I appreciate staff's work on this.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sherman.
I just have a question on how it works. I guess like if someone comes on to Zoom, like the 3 calls or however many calls we've received, and they come on and have their question, but they obviously don't show their face because they don't have one. How do you get it to stop, or how do you not accept them as like a commenter?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, but that person would need permission by the city. So if someone raised their hand, they would be granted permission by the city to speak. So that would just be prohibited.
That is correct.
Okay, so the other people have raised hands and you have had to admit them, but then we can't get them up. Okay, thank you.
I didn't realize that either. Councilmember Boyle.
No questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Caldwell, for working on this. As you know, it was quite stressful for me. So I really appreciate you getting down and getting this done for us.
Absolutely.
And making it very reasonable, and making some reasonable accommodations for members of the communities who have no ill intent, but might have some special needs that just don't meet what we have here written down. So thank you. So if there's no further questions or comment, do we have a motion for this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 24-002, a resolution by the City Council of the City of College Place, Washington, amending rules of conduct for council meetings established in City Resolution 20-003.
Second, Councilmember Williams.
Great. We have a first, second. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you, Ms. Colwell.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Carlton's going to present an agreement with Northwest Municipal Advisors, also known as NWMA, to provide financing services for the TIF bond issuance.
Thank you, Mayor. And we do have tonight joining us is Ryan Newmeister and Scott Bauer from NWMA. They'll, I'm sure, make some comments after I speak. Of course, we all remember the tax increment financing that was passed last May, where you approved the creation of our first TIF district. In the CFP this year, we have identified projects totaling $19.3 million of capital projects, of which we're looking for multiple funding sources, but TIF will account for 8.6, rounded up to $8.7 million of funding of those projects. A majority of that going to Majonier Road project, which is at close to 90% complete in its design. We are looking at going out for funding on this project in the next couple months. And as a result of that process, it can be very complicated in how we fund the TIF, either by a bond or public placement with a bank or some other agency. And because of our inexperience in going out to the bond market and getting this level of financing, we have an opportunity to have Northwest Municipal Advisors help us, guide us through that process at a cost of their minimum actually of $20,000. So we feel that that is value added to the process and will help us guide us through the process this first go around in TIF financing. That being said, Scott or Ryan, do you have anything to add?
Well, thank you, Mr. Carlton. Yes, Scott Bauer with Northwest Municipal Advisors. Yeah, so we are municipal advisors. We help clients in the financing of projects exactly like what Mr. Carlton just described. So we help through the process. We help with the sizing and structuring of a bond issue, the selection process for an underwriting firm, which would be the actual firm that would sell the bonds. We ultimately coordinate the financing team. You know, it's about a 3-4 month process to get through a financing from the start through the end. And then when bonds are actually sold, We're there at the pricing, making sure that the interest rates and yields that the underwriter is proposing, in addition to their compensation, is on market. So we are with you basically from beginning to the end, running the bond financing so that we end up with successful financing for the city. Ryan, anything to add?
I would just say that, yes, we act as the fiduciary for the city throughout this process. So as we're working with the underwriters throughout the process, we really work on behalf of the city as we go through the process.
Right, thank you. Anything further, Mr. Carlton?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, council members, Councilmember Cleveland, questions or comments?
Just one question. Are we expecting that generally when we go out to bond, we'll use, an external service to assist us in that, or will we be using our staff for that in the future if we get the hang of it?
My hope is that after this go around, that the next one that we'll be able to do on our own. But the plan is for the next TIF district is a pay as we go, so we won't be issuing any bonds on that TIF. But if we do have any financing in the future, hopefully you learn enough to help us guide us through this process.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Espinosa,
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions.
Councilmember Williams.
As I recall, in the past, we had bond attorneys for when we did bond issues. And is that the same role that you're serving, or is this slightly different? I went to a bond training and I just got terrified of how complicated it all is at one of the Washington associations. So I'm a little confused on the different roles.
Oh, well, terrific. You may have attended one of my classes. No, so we serve a different purpose than what we'd call a bond counsel, which is an attorney that specializes in municipal bond finance. I think the city has historically used Foster Garvey in the past, and they would still need to be part of this deal. They provide a legal opinion that's relied on by investors that say that the bonds were legally sold and likely in this case qualify for tax exempt financing. So all of that would be relied upon by the investors. So they do the legal opinion in addition to the bond ordinance, which would ultimately authorize the issuance of the bonds.
So you're helping us coordinate all the moving pieces, including the bond attorney, is basically what's the plan is here.
Correct. We're sizing, coordinating the team, hiring the underwriter, and then serving on behalf of the city to negotiate any final terms with the underwriter. So our business then at the end is we argue about basis points with the underwriter, trying to make sure that the price given to the city is on the market and as best as it can be.
Great, thank you so much.
Councilmember Sherman.
Is this bond different than other bonds that we've done then? Is that why? Okay.
Yeah. This is because it's basically the security on its tax increment financing. And as a city, we're like on the cutting edge of this thing. There's like only like 3 other ones in the whole state even doing this right now. So basically Brian and I and Foster Pepper don't know what we don't know, and that's the issue.
Okay, yeah, that's where I was confused. I'm like, I know we've done bonds before, so bond is a bond is not a bond. So, okay, thank you so much.
And also, you don't necessarily have to go to a bond. It can be private financing through a bank, and those
Or
options.
if one of us just wants to write a check, that's fine too.
Yeah, if you.
Okay,
want to write a check.
thank you.
We'll give you a good interest rate.
I think the council member salary will take care of that, right? Ms. Boyle.
No questions, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a question. Sorry.
Councilmember Espinosa.
So Mr. Carlton, what is the difference between going to the bond market versus financing through a bank? What is the risk and reward of one versus the other?
maybe Scott or Ryan can elaborate on that.
Sure. Yeah, historically for a project of this size and estimated term, bond issues or a public bond sale was the only way to go for the most part. We started to see around 2016 a lot of commercial banks, local banks start to get into municipal lending, and that actually end up being pretty competitive from a rate standpoint with what you could get in the public market. So a lot of financings actually did go toward banks, which tends to be an easier process. There's not what we call an official statement. There's typically not a bond rating, so it's typically faster. That was the case really through even the pandemic, where banks were very competitive. As interest rates started to rise, banks seemed to raise their rates more quickly than what we would see in the public bond market. And then particularly after a financial crisis in March, bank lending really pulled back. So we're just not seeing as many lenders in the space that would be willing to go out for this amount and this length of time. Now, again, as a municipal advisor, that is something that we look at as a possible means of selling this debt before we would say, let's go issue it in the public market. It's just most recently for the past year or so, it's been pretty clear that the public bond market has been a better, lower cost financing.
So you could effectively look at both scenarios and advise on which one would be better for the city, cost wise,
Correct.
long term. Okay,
That's
thank
correct.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yeah, I guess my personal opinion is that the city should be under no pressure not to use a firm like this in the future. We could save a few bucks here and there, but this is something that sometimes gets so technical and so complex, as we just discussed here a few minutes ago. I really would prefer in the future that you continue to use a company like this so that we do not make a mistake or we miss out on an opportunity in light of saving $20,000 with the potential of losing maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Peterson. Any others? Questions, comments? Councilmember Williams?
I just would like to second Councilmember Peterson's remarks.
Great, thank you. All right, if we have no further questions, comments, do we have a motion on this resolution?
Councilmember Williams, I'll move to adopt resolution number 24-003, which authorizes the city administrator to sign the professional services agreement with Northwest Municipal Advisors to provide financing services for a selection of funding of the TIF bond for a cost not to exceed $20,000.
I'll second.
Excellent, we got a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We appreciate the information. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, gosh, we're just zipping right along. Next item is the College Place Unified Development Code update by Mr. Rickard and Mr. Dorn. Welcome again, Mr. Dorn.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We will try to be brief on this, and thanks, Greg, for attending tonight. We provided you with an update on the amendment process that we worked through in 2023 at a workshop. This has been through Planning Commission, and they held a public hearing back in November on the 21st regarding these proposed changes. The state has been notified of the proposed changes. A number of the changes, as you can see outlined in the summary, are based on changes in state law. For instance, our permit procedures. We had to adjust our permit processing timelines. to comply with state law. We were mostly, the changes weren't all that significant for us in terms of how long we take to process our permits, but had to bring that into compliance. Accessory buildings, there were some changes regarding accessory dwelling units, ADUs. The state law now requires all zoning districts to allow accessory dwelling units up to 2 units per lot. So we're bringing our code in compliance, and this was a change at the state level to it's believed will help with our affordable housing. So we brought our code in compliance with those regulations. The categorical exemptions, there were a number of them that had been in play. We're bringing ours in alignment with what Walla Walla has. We have development standards in place that allow us to basically work through the administrative process and make sure that these developments are in compliance with our city regulations, where it's really unnecessary to send them through the environmental review process because our standards are high enough that there's not really anything out of the ordinary that would be a surprise. That doesn't mean that a development wouldn't still need to go through an environmental review if there's like sensitive areas on the property. It doesn't exempt to those levels, but if there's, for instance, you see one of them is the exemption levels for multifamily development. If there's not anything of significance on the site, then that allows you to apply that exemption level. The other thing, mobile vendors, was more of bringing ourselves in alignment with how the mobile vendors in the valley are processed. Our code is mirroring more of what Walla Walla's regulations are. We also eliminated the requirement for a special use permit for the vendors to locate. That primarily was a change requested by staff, and that we don't have the staffing resources to process at that level, and they're not being processed at that level in our neighboring jurisdiction. So essentially what it boils down to is there's some distance requirements. For instance, if you want to set up shop and on the parking strip on College Avenue and you're selling, let's say you're selling donuts and coffee and sandwiches, well, you need to be a certain distance from businesses that the brick and mortar that sell similar goods. So you couldn't pull up to a vacant spot right in front of Rogers Bakery and start selling your donuts. But so we'll deal with those on a case by case basis. If we have somebody setting up shop like that, then we'll deal with them as needed to make sure that they're in compliance. But basically you have to have your health inspections through the county health department, which they all do regardless. And then we make sure that they have a city business endorsement. And then of course, we're entering into a new building code cycle. So the section on the building codes were updated to reflect the 2021 international codes for building and fire, and the new energy codes that are going into effect in March. And then just some minor clerical adjustments here and there, requirements, clarifying some setback adjustments on corner lots, fence placement permit. We've been seeing a lot of uptick in activity and hand holding on placement of fences. And we've had some retroactively where we discover a fence that's like, let's say it's violating a visibility triangle because they built it too high. And so we've got property owners that have spent thousands of dollars on their fence, and now they have to tear it out or reconfigure it. So we feel that while it's an additional expense for every person putting up a fence, it will save them time and money, and that will be helping them through the process, and will we'll have to actually bring back the actual amount, but it'll be a minimal amount, that we'll be proposing, in the fee schedule.
I'm sorry, explain that to me again. Are you saying before they put up the fence, they'll need to get a permit? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so part of the fence building process, they'll get a permit. And it'll be a placement permit, not, we won't be helping them figure out how to build it. Unless it's over 7 feet in height, then that does require a building permit, but that's already in our code. That would be a separate permit. So it's simply to help make sure that they're not obstructing visibility. That they're not building within the right of way, things of that nature. Yeah. And then.
One moment, Councilmember Peterson has a question.
Is there any way, I think we asked this several times, but is there any way like in the newsletter to put maybe sort of a heading, building a fence, bold and then below, because it's interesting that you say that, because many times fences go up and you go, is that right? Has someone called the city, anyway. And so, and maybe just, not that that's going to catch everything or, but even just some sort of a heading that catches their attention in a newsletter or something that says building a fence, here's the 3 or 4 hot button issues, before you have to tear your fence down, because it goes out. It's alongside the sidewalk, and does the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea in that.
Cause I could make that mistake, for crying out loud, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's something that we can do seasonally, and, in the spring, that's when we start getting the phone calls for, and so, yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing is an update on the short-term rentals. The building official asked that we add some language that other jurisdictions, like up in Spokane, I added some language that allows the building official to require that all sleeping rooms meet the existing international code requirements. That's kind of the building codes the way they are. If you're building something new, obviously you have to meet the egress window requirements. But for short-term rentals, it gets kind of technical because it's not a change in use. It still falls under let's say that the International Residential Code. So you're not changing in use to like a commercial type. So in order to enforce those international codes on an existing use, you can't do it. So you have to have specific language in your code that allows you to require that. And this is a fire life safety issue. You have people that aren't familiar with the buildings that they're sleeping in, and we need to make sure that every room that is a sleeping room has appropriately sized egress. So that's it. Unless Greg, did you have anything to add that I might have missed? And then Ree is also online, who's helped get this into the ordinance draft that we have, so it can be codified appropriately. So,
John, just one item, which is with respect to the mobile vendors and food carts and the like. We did over the last several weeks, as we were preparing the ordinance for adoption, had some discussions internally and felt that there was still some areas of potential confusion. And so to just let the council know, we went in and made some additional adjustments to clarify the intent and the language and make it, I think, easier for the user and easier to administer. So there have been some changes to the mobile food vendor portion since the Planning Commission made the recommendation, but I think collectively we all feel is consistent with the Planning Commission's recommendations. But it's a better product.
yeah, thank you, Greg.
All right, council members, Councilmember Cleveland, question, comments?
Looks good. No questions.
Councilmember Espinosa,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
Just a comment on the fence placement permit. It might also be a good idea to reach out to the fencing contractors. Because they're in a great place to let people know that, hey, you need to get this done so that we don't, because they're gonna get just as many angry phone calls if people have to tear down their fences. But no questions. Thank you for all your work on this.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thanks.
Okay, I have some questions. Sorry. Okay. You, regarding the mobile vendors, you said that we were changing them to be more like Walla Wallas. Is there something different than Walla Walla still, or did we pretty much align?
Oh, no, I mean, they're pretty identical, and Greg, you might be able to elaborate on this, but it's the technical legal aspect, or, you know, the way we phrase things might be slightly different, but the intents are all the same. There's no,
Okay,
we have not required anything additional than what Walla Walla has set in place.
perfect. And then you said that 2021, international 2021 fire codes, is that correct? We're bringing it
Yes.
2021?
Yeah, they're always behind a few years, and it usually, the codes, it usually takes the states a long time to get through the legislature. And then, of course, we have our own special energy codes. We have the most restrictive energy codes in the nation. And so it always takes this, they were supposed to be implemented last year.
I see.
But it's taken so long for them to
Okay.
get their ducks in.
And this question, and if it's not, now's not the time to talk about it, we could talk about it offline another time, but regarding the short-term rentals, I recently saw a list of the most up-to-date list of short-term rentals that were identified through that program you utilize. Do we follow up on those lists with anybody who's not registered?
We are slowly following up on those, and as that program ramps up, and we get we intend to continue to get those licensed that we are not aware of. A lot of them are licensed. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering. All right, last one. So Mike and I attended 2 meetings today, and Councilmember Sherman was at one of them where we're talking about housing and businesses, jobs, really. So a lot of discussion was around building bureaucracy, I guess what it was, fees. The Economist said that 25 cents of every dollar goes to fees, and permitting fees, different types of fees for homes. So it's, so 25 cents per dollar right off the bat just goes to those. And then everything else that requires in the zoning. So my question to you is, anything that was changed here that helps reduce burdens to encourage housing or affordable housing or multi-use housing in any of this, or did this not address any of that right now?
Well, I would say that the changes that we have are not increasing any housing, the cost of housing, none of the proposal, other than what the state is mandating us towards the updated energy codes. Those are out of our control.
Sure.
And those definitely will reflect on the cost of housing, but I don't know what our, 25 cents in our region, if it's actually that high for what our fees are. I would be surprised if it was.
Mike, do you remember, was he saying national or was it Walla Walla County?
He was saying the county.
Right, that's what I understand.
And I haven't had enough time to calculate all that, but for this city, I do not buy that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do a more detailed analysis of that, but I really don't see that.
Okay, it'd be nice to know,
Yeah.
just so that we can, if it's combat, about that theory that he's talking about in the county, the 25 cents, that just did not sit well, I think, and that would scare a lot of developers away, just based on that. So if we ever get around to being able to get that cost estimate, that'd be great, just to know.
It'd be interesting to understand how he came to that figure as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because he wasn't even talking about land or materials or nothing, just the fees and permitting. Okay. I appreciate that just because, Walla Walla County took a beating today in both those meetings regarding regarding how hard they are to get permits and stuff. So I just want to make sure that we're not causing that kind of headaches as well. So I was just checking on that. Thank you. I appreciate the information. Just checking. All right. Any other, Councilmember Peterson?
No, I'll take the tough wording of this. I would move to approve ordinance number 24-002.
Second.
That he'll take he'll take on the tough wording of this. I know, that's why I had to scroll up and I passed it because it was so small.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know the number.
did I get it right?
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you, Greg. We always appreciate your help here.
And thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council, and have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John, for that. All right, last items what we have here is the administrative reports, and Mr. Rizzatello is going to present on the economic development flyer for fiscal year 2024.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm not gonna go over all of this because we all of us at tenant port meeting, we sit there similar stuff with the indicators. So the key takeaways with the flyers, we have a general marketing flyer, and then we have corridor specific ones for downtown Myra Road and the Stone Creek Meadowbrook area. The Cliff's notes of all of this is that in general, most of the data is going in the right direction. So when you look at the population, our 45-minute drive time, which a lot of the retailers look at, you need to be above the 70,000 threshold. We continue to go past that, heading toward 80,000. And then likewise, our daytime population is even getting up there as well. I would say the home value, when you aggregate stuff, when the 45-minute drive time, the jump on that, depending on the various business districts you're doing the radial from, it increases quite a bit from where in the Esri Business Analyst software it goes from 300, just shy of 305,000 from a 45-minute drive from downtown College Avenue up to 417,000 in 2028. So again, the housing theme, that's something we need to monitor. Likewise, the other thing which at the Windermere presentation they were talking about was the aging of the population a little bit. You can see that in the median age where it just does jump up slightly. I will say relative to the other counties, with the exception of Whitman and Franklin, it still isn't climbing as much as those other ones. So that's a takeaway. And then the consumer spending, if you look at the flyers, this iteration versus previous years, it continues to increase. So that's all good news. So that's the Cliff's notes. That way I'm not going over all this stuff for a very long time. So.
But actually, those are all really interesting if
Yeah.
you want to read. So if you haven't read those flyers, please take a look at them. They are quite informative. Councilmember Cleveland, questions or comments from Mr. Rizzatello?
No questions.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Mike, I know that you're leveraging this information to attract new businesses to our community. Are you seeing anything new from any new potential businesses that would be looking at this data and looking at our market as a favorable place to move their operations?
Yes, there are a couple of big fish in the pond that are looking in our direction. So that's where this information is key. Cause like when I go to Vegas to talk to retailers, it's not where you get to have a very long meeting with them. Literally, it's like 5-minute blocks where you just yell out data at them and it's like, okay, or get out of my booth pretty much. So you need this information for them to size up an opinion of you and this community and all these flyers and our available sites. We also put on a flash drive, which is key because when you go to Las Vegas, a lot of cities will just print out the flyers. And what you realize, especially when you leave that convention, is all the paper gets thrown in the trash. And because flash drives are cool, they end up keeping all of them. So that ends up working out pretty well. So there definitely are big fish in the pond. I will say from the retail side, I will also say from the industrial side, we have an opening as well, like with what's going on with Martin Airfield, because Corliss owns that and they're going to be reinvesting money in the airport and other things. And we actually, this will be going to council next business meeting, but we did get another grant to pay for an infrastructure assessment out there because as you all may recall, we don't know what we don't know because up until Terragang and Corliss bought that, we originally were pulling it out of the city. So that's like a giant neon question mark out there. So all that data will help. And that I think that's going to be key to trying to diversify our economy out there.
Awesome, thanks.
Councilmember Peterson? No questions, comments?
No.
Councilmember Williams?
No questions. This is fascinating data.
Councilmember Sherman?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyle?
No questions. Thanks.
Councilmember Peterson? Nothing. Later? All right, another time. All right. If no further questions or comments for Mr. Rizzatello? All right. Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate that. These are great flyers. I really like reading them. No executive session tonight. We are now at the closing items. Is there any other business for good of the order? Councilmember Peterson?
I just want to say, Robert, great job on the streets. I think there's many times this is the time of the year to gripe and whine and, roll around on the snow and stuff. But I was out of town, came back in, saw the intersections, the gravel that was put there, boy, just up and down the streets. Just kudos to your staff. I know those are long hours sometimes at night, sometimes really in the morning. You need to let them know we appreciate it, that the city appreciates it, and you did a fantastic job.
I appreciate that. All the public works staff worked really hard. Some of them worked really long hours and they were diligent about looking at forecasts and trying to make the right decisions. And so I will definitely share that with them. I think they did an excellent job. So thank you.
Mayor, I do have another comment.
Yes, Councilmember Espinosa.
This is about safety. Maybe some of you heard that there was an accident yesterday over by 4th by the university. There was an accident. And so the comment that I want to make is a lot of college students seem to not use the crossing pedestrian lights, and they just seem to cross. And during these times of winter and slush, it's difficult for some cars to stop. So I would like to, I don't know if we have the means to encourage the university to let the students know to be more careful when using the pedestrian crossing to prevent any future accidents or things that may arise out of that. Just today, I was driving through College Avenue and just college students started crossing as a herd without pressing the button. I mean, they have all the infrastructure there. They have the lights. They can just press the button so the cars can know to stop. But they just cross and, fatalities can happen, something safety related. So I would just like to make a comment for the university to be aware of that. And they can just let the students know to be careful and just look out for those things, especially as the weather is kind of treacherous out there.
Mike, maybe you can ask Chief Tamaras to pay them a visit and just let them know that,
Yeah,
that's becoming an issue again.
we definitely can have police department conduct outreach with the university. I will say, this has been an issue winter to winter, because I know in years past they even did informational videos and it's like an ongoing trend. So it's one of those things where I will say in the mid to long term, I think there needs to be a more out of the box solution for that crossing across College Avenue. And I'll just park my comments on that. Yeah.
We've talked about this over the years, and it has to do, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It has to do with the structure also of those lights, where it's a 5-stage process to cross the street. You know, it's the. And so that was developed when we redid the College Avenue. And so, you know, I think, and maybe that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
But it's a case where, is there some way to rewire that to go to a flashing yellow? Because we all drive down there, but it's flashing red, it's red, students are gone, it's still red. Do I go? Do I stay?
Yeah.
You know, what do I do? And then, as you said, many just, you know, it's none of the above. And it could be, some of that response could be the fact of this delayed multi-step process, and I need to get to the cafeteria or something, you know what I'm saying, on the other side. And I would love to see at some point, like maybe what we're working on down by the post office, but something where there's a button that's hit and we have flashing yellow, like it's kind of universally known. I don't know if that's possible, but it's something that immediately works.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Mike.
Well, I will say, I think both of those crossings do need to be converted, because it was just the vintage at which College Avenue and Rose Street was reconstructed. Back at that point, the State Department of Transportation, they thought that was the in vogue thing to do the hawk signals. And there's a very narrow group, us being one of them, who have them from that vintage. And they started moving away from that to rapid flashing beacons and other things because of the mass confusion. So I do think that's something we need to take a look at, potentially through the upcoming ped and bike grants and stuff. That's what is going to pay for a crosswalk at the post office. So to come back, the reason we didn't file it the past time was that there is language within the DOT grant monies that it has to be about 8 years out from construction to qualify, but we are now at that point. So I think there is a story to be had there. I will say another avenue to potentially pay for it and lump it in with some other stuff. And our Economic Development Commission is currently evaluating it, is the potential for a second tax increment financing district, but this one would be a more pay-as-you-go to go along Whitman Drive and maybe taking some of that, because you have improvements that need to be made on that Bob Price property behind Home Depot, the hawk signals, and then as Martin Airfield develops out. So I think there's a couple of avenues to deal with this.
Thanks, Mike.
I say we just fence the whole thing and put little turnstiles where they can cross this. That way there's no crossing other than.
Please don't forget a permit for your fence.
Where I went to school at Urbana-Champaign, they actually had railroad crossing gates at those crossings and like big iron fences along the side. So there is precedence for that.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen them.
Or extremely prickly bushes.
There you go. Prickly bushes.
We don't need a permit.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, to launch something at them when they're crossing the street illegally.
I literally had a college student hit the button after he crossed the street last week. And the car in front of me stopped and we sat there through the entire session of red and flashing. And I'm thinking, oh, This is not,
There must be a better way.
yeah, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that student was chuckling all the way to the lunch line.
Yeah, good thoughts.
Yeah, no, but seriously, the danger of it, and it's really dark, it's really wet, it's really slushy, it's cold, people are hurrying, and lives are in danger that way. It's great. Any other discussion items? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to conclude the meeting?
So.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. We have a first and a second. If there's no objection, the meeting is concluded at 8:01 PM. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.